Good. Kia ora, everybody. What's up? Good morning, New Zealand. It is Friday, and I am joined by CEO of Callaghan Innovation, Vic Crone. How are you, Vic?
Morena, I am doing good, thank you, Robett. How are you?
You are out of the chaos of Auckland. You're off in the bush in the wilderness, away from a bunch of humans. How's the setup?
I am in the bush. There is no one around here. I don't even think they could find us. So the setup is great. I've got my daughter. She's doing her school lessons at the moment, and I've got my other daughter in the kind of garage upstairs doing her university work. So, and then the dog is just like, what is it with these humans? They're all home all day. He's like super excited. So no, we've got a good setup here. I think another few days, and then I'll be able to just kind of totally kind of settle down, relax, and get some new routines going.
Yeah, the routine of everyone this week is kind of like shell shock, married at first sight. Holy shit, what's going on? I think by the weekend, then it'll be like, okay, now we've kind of got the routine. And I think by next Monday, the flow of, I guess, productivity will probably go up a little bit. And also, it's quite funny because when they knew it was coming, oh, that's a dog. Yeah, doggies. Yes, I can see him. Yes. First dog guest, more than welcome. See, we're humanizing the corporate experience. I had a buddy who had a mad batch he was going to go to, and then they said there was no fishing, so he just got pumped. He was like, "Stuff it!" So he's just stayed in Hamilton for a bit. So it sounds like it's been good.
I think just on
this
your point,
last week, when did
just on the routines? I think what we need to recognise is there's a whole spectrum of things going on. So I think you're absolutely right that there is a range of people who are going to settle into new routines quite quickly. But I think there's a range of people who aren't. And, you know, I know personally a number of people who have been really caught short. You know, they've been in the middle of moving houses. They've actually just recently separated from their families. So their kids' routines aren't settled. And, you know, their partner may have lost their jobs. So I think for some of us, we're really lucky. Like I'm really lucky. And the kids and I can settle real fast here. But for others, they're not lucky like that. And so, you know, we just need to keep being really empathetic and listening and supporting those that are going to take a little bit more time to settle into, you know, what is a completely different way of life when they were already upended in their previous way of life.
Yeah, it's a really good point that you jumped there, because one of the, I think I said it earlier this week as well. I put a post on LinkedIn and I was like, oh, March 24th, I'm doing the mass. And in 9 months, we're going to have a whole bunch of Christmas Day babies and ha, 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 like funny. And someone goes, yeah, and also divorces and domestic violence.
Absolutely.
And I was like, holy shit. And I hadn't thought about it. And I literally went through the thing of like, okay, yeah, if old mate's lost his job or there's drama at home and he's doesn't have his sport or whatever else as well. And there's going to be all these like dynamics which I hadn't thought of. So what I actually just got a call with Dion Nash from Triumph and Disaster, wanting to try and open up more conversation around the tough times mentally that a bunch of people are about to have. So I think that you're totally right, because yeah, if their normal world's been flipped upside down, even Craig was saying yesterday, a bunch of his employees didn't even have stuff at home to work from, so they were just like kind of just raping and pillaging the Xero offices, snaking chairs and shit.
Yeah.
You're right though. That's going to be it. I see it as waves. The first wave is like, holy shit, now we're now remote. And the second wave is just that thing of like forced isolation for some that need people is a real thing. Or they've got their routine and they're, you know, like the water cooler Karen chats and just all these other things. So I think as much as I'm worried about the hospitals, I almost kind of feel that the police are going to have a whole bunch of gnarly stuff they're going to have to deal with domestically in this next little bit as well. So I think you're totally right. Empathy, those that aren't as, I guess, fortunate for situations like this, right?
Yeah, and I think, you know, I know someone who is a police officer, and he was sharing, you know, early on some of the things that they're being called out to. And you're exactly right. You know, people's level of anxiety has moved hugely. Their level of stress has moved. In times like this, when you're completely upended, even the little things just frustrate you so much. And then the thought of, you know, while we all love our families and our children, the thought of being 24/7 with them for at least a month, you know, isn't always the most exciting thing, and can really put pressure on parents. And so how they cope with that in terms of mental health, as you say, violence, some of the things that, you and I just wouldn't even consider, but, how other people might be looking after their kids because they just don't know any better in terms of sitting them in front of horror movies all day. Just, things like that we just need to acknowledge are happening. And I think what we will see is a lot more support for those aspects of our community come out in the next kind of 3-4 weeks and months following that. And then how we support that, because we're in positions where we can to support those initiatives to help others as well.
I think you're totally right. Like I know they'd always have in Canterbury, they'd talk about when the nor'wester would come through, domestic violence would go up. And then there was when the All Blacks lose, domestic violence goes up. It's almost forcing that conversation now where everyone's physically in it. So at all spectrums, they can understand that this is a thing because they are feeling the frustrations of being confined. They're feeling the frustrations. So the same way I think, I've said it before, like John Kerwin was kind of the Trojan horse as a vehicle to talk about men's mental health. This corona thing is going to be almost a forced moment for us to think about all these other things that exist in society as well, right? Which net is probably good because it's forcing the issue to at least have the conversation earlier. That's
right. And then, as you say, like, let people be vulnerable. Let them kind of just sting off, vent off. Let that be okay rather than bottle up, and bang. So, and I do think, Michelle Dickinson put up. I saw last night. She's put up some STEM kids for STEM lessons for kids online, and so you can contribute to that in terms of helping those who are not as able to afford that to keep their kids busy during the day. So those sorts of things I think are really, really important as well.
So when did everyone go remote at Callaghan? Because obviously Callaghan Innovation, maybe just give the quick one-liner for those who aren't aware or haven't engaged with it before, how it all works and operates, just so for a bit of context for some of the viewers.
Yeah, so we're New Zealand's innovation agency, and we're obviously a government agency, and we do a range of things from providing grants to stimulate R&D, implementing the new R&D tax incentive that's coming in. We've got a range of innovation skills programs to lift people's skills in this space. And we also have a couple of hundred scientists and engineers who are actually doing the technical R&D work for businesses in New Zealand and globally. And then we, support incubators and accelerators, things like that. So that's broadly what we do. So we have been doing a lot of testing of working from home last week. And then we started progressively moving more people from home. And then during the week, it all happened pretty quick, though, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so Tuesday, we had a big chunk migrate home. Monday afternoon, Tuesday, we had a big migrate home. And then Wednesday, we pretty much had everybody off campus. We're a little bit different because we've got a 12-hectare campus in Wellington, Gracefield, which has, a lot of complex engineering and chemical processing on it. So we're just working through. It takes 3 weeks to shut that site down, so that's just not obviously and so what we've been doing is just working out how we do a basic maintenance plan to keep the site going, and it is also supporting some of the COVID work that's happening in New Zealand at a technical kind of chemical level. So we had a pretty fast exit, and then pretty much all of our people are home now, and just giving them the rest of the week to kind of settle in, get some new routines going, things like that.
How's actually, I was just going to ask from an innovation standpoint with all these scientists, have much of your crew been, I guess, leaned on with government talking to about a whole bunch of this different sort of health and science or whatever? Like, how have it kind of integrated in with government over this whole sort of thing? Because I imagine you'd probably be on their speed dial for a few things.
Yeah, well, and government are obviously have been working out really fast. What are the technical skills they've got right across the universities, Crown Research Institutes, and ourselves, for example? And so we've been really clear in what skills we have, and we're doing a range of support in terms of, and there's some work going in regards to getting image sensor cameras up in our borders, so as people are coming through the border, we can be monitoring them and temperature and things like that. So there's some work we're supporting, and then we've been loaning a few of our people to some of the Crown Research Institutes who are supporting this. So absolutely, wherever we've got the skills, we're in like Flynn to be able to help out.
How do you think? I was saying to Jolly from Spark the other day, it's forced big machines to move really, really, really fast. that haven't been done before. Have you ever seen so many either government agencies and the government and councils and businesses ever, I guess, be so innovative in such a short amount of time ever?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anything like this anywhere. So
Yeah.
what we do know is in a crisis, and most of the crises that I've been involved in have been, kind of quite tightly impacted. So they might involve a business or several businesses, but nothing in the scale of this. What we do know, though, is when businesses and people are in crisis, they mobilize fast.
Yeah.
And I guess what also it teaches us is that we can mobilize around some of these big issues we've got to solve as a country and as a world really fast when we want to.
Yes,
And so we now know that when we need to, we can move. And so how we don't let it get to crisis before we start to move at scale together in a collaborative way.
Well, I think when it's forced, I guess, like innovation and speed for government, I think now everyone's got to really, really at the end of this, hopefully we all get out safe and everyone's good and we get back to, I guess, a little bit of normality. Everyone now in government and councils and corporations are all going to be like, well, we moved this fast for this, so why now they now have ammunition to go up the food chain to say that's not good enough because we've actually, I mean, we shifted 5,000 people to work remotely within 7 days and take our whole publicly listed traded company totally not in any of the cities, and we still operated and we still think so. Why can't we do this little thing? So I think there's going to be a lot of very brave management that start challenging a whole bunch of boards and CEOs to why not. And I think that's going to be a thing of like, why can't we? Why can't we? Which I think could be good.
I think that's been talking about exponential disruption of technology for a long time. And I just feel like people don't believe us that we've got a whole range of technology coming that is going to exponentially disrupt our businesses and our world. And now we're feeling what exponential disruption looks like. So, I mean, I really hope that we take lessons out of this it's way better to be prepared for that rather than where we are now, which is dumped in it and then having to scramble and run through it, which you can scramble and run in a crisis well, but not as well as you could if we planned and prepared. So, in some ways, I wonder whether this is a new normal. I really hope that this level of disruption isn't the new normal, but this world where we are exponentially changing and shifting the way we work with a whole new range of technology coming at us to stimulate that. I feel like this is a bit of a flavor of what it will be like, albeit quite a few levels down, hopefully.
I do like it how no one's been able to give technology shit that it hasn't worked, because if this was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I was saying, before, there is no physical or possible way that you could have done the same speed for businesses to operate not in all their physical locations the way it has and the way everyone done. I don't think it would have crashed and burned and not been good for everyone. So the cool thing with this is almost like it's forcing tech to be not only like used but empowered and fully integrated into every part so they can actually survive it. It's cool seeing technology do something good. You know what I mean? Like there's so much like, gadgety shit and there's all this like stuff. It's like, oh, I mean, it's like, how does it affect me? It's like, no, well, the whole world's basically stopped. Everyone's gone into caves and now we're still actually functioning with some type of new normality outside of the, what has been regular, which I think says actually a lot that for the I guess the trust that they have in the technology and innovation sector, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think, that is one thing that we've done really well as a country is our fiber network. We invested in it early. It was done in a disruptive way to the industry. However, it has been rolled out well. Yeah. I'd hate to be in Australia now. They can't even get their fiber off the ground properly. So imagine working, your whole nation working from home of predominantly, last generation technology, right? So, we have done that well. And so now what we need to start to explore is what are all the cool things that we can do on this technology. It's there. It's working for us. It's holding up. And so we can be doing a lot more with it. But we haven't always been doing that because we've been wed to the old models of working. Now that's been thrown in the air right now.
Yeah. How do you think, so at the back end of this, do you think that most businesses will decide to implement and change a whole bunch of new systems and processes and structure for how their business operates for better efficiencies and stuff? Do you think they will realize, Microsoft Teams can actually save some travel? Google Hangouts can save all these different Hangouts, all these Slack channels, whatever. Like, how much do you think this will change the way New Zealand businesses operate as we go to like a new Aotearoa?
Well, I would like to think that they really will. And by doing that and by using this period of time to create new patterns, create new behaviours, adapt your cultures to be able to work in a far more flexible, technology-orientated way. And then it's just, as you kind of talked about, the level of creativity and innovation that we're seeing happen with this technology, this new way, is awesome. So I really hope that businesses will. I know that some are already looking at that. And if you do, then for me, you're positioning yourself much better for the next decade of change that's coming through.
If you are a small business now and you are now forced to figure out what Microsoft Teams is or Google Hangouts is, and you're not, I guess, technically as literate or embrace the new way that it's potentially being done, how would you mentally help them gear up for embracing this to move forward? Because I think that mental, I was talking to Dion the other day, big businesses have systems and protocols, and they've got processes in place when shit turns south. These things happen, right? Small businesses within the space of 24 to 48 hours had to let stuff go, look at shutting up shop, think about logistics, and all these kind of, like, the weight of strategic pressure came down so fast, so gnarly. Now they're physically at home today. It's Friday. They're stressed out. They've had the worst day of just chaos. How would you help them navigate mentally the strategic steps to, I guess, see out of the haze and where it can go, or where they can go?
I mean, I think the first thing is to actually just get through this phase for many small businesses, which is around basically identifying a more sustainable structure in the short term, cost structure for their business. And just get through that and get through it real fast, because then you need to shift your mindset into how are you going to pivot your organization to get through the next wee while. And I'm kind of thinking about it in three phases, if you like. The first phase is just consolidate as fast as you can. Many businesses are already doing that. If you haven't done that, then get started. And you've got Zach De Silva and Nurture Changes put out a fantastic assessment of things that you should be looking at within your business to stabilize it fast. So stabilize that real fast. And then the second one is work out how you pivot. And that is whether you need to pivot your business model, how you're working, your technology, your products and services, but you need to pivot to an online digital world for the next probably 2, 4, 5, 6 months. And so you need to work out, if you're not online fully, how the hell you get there. And so tap into all the resources. The wonderful thing is there are so many people like you know what Andy Hamilton and Pat McPhee are doing with Manaki, and so many wonderful things being stood up. Go to those places for help. The other thing is that for many of these businesses, they've got their kids at home. Now, I don't know about but my kids, 15 and 20, have navigated to this world with no problem at all. And so use your kids and help and get them to help you navigate.
That's cool.
Your environments look like, and then if you've got, grandkids or whatever else, get online and get them helping you. So, and then there's lots of online tools, Microsoft Teams, or whether it's Google with their productivity suite, they have so many online resources for you to be able to work out and navigate how to work through this. All of the big software players are running, seminars, webinars, everything, you name it, of how do you cope through this and how do you best utilize it. And then I think the third phase is the kind of recovery phase. So, and I don't know when that comes through, but after you've pivoted, then we go into a more stable world. We kind of know what that looks like, and then you need to pivot again to work through the recovery phase.
I really like the idea about the kids being the heroes.
Totally.
Because they are, right? Like, I mess with that shit here. I think that's so right. And no one's actually talked about that. Like, don't go to Google. Flipping ask 13-year-old Johnny who's living on TikTok.
That's exactly right? And because because we're much more open, we've been disrupted, so our mindsets are more open to, shit, actually, I just have to use this, whether it's workplace or things, or I have to use it now. So get your children in there. And I've been in a few where we've had we've had staff struggling, and it's like, go get your kids, they'll come help you.
See, if there's all these like young bucks out there now, I think they've just realized their biggest leverage they have IP to get extra spending money from the parents by holding Google their accounts their tech accounts at ransom to get them going. I think that's a really good idea. I honestly hadn't thought of that, because I think that everyone's going to these spots. Yeah, you're right. Don't look at the screen. Look at the flipping couch. Oi, Grom. How do I get this working? Sort the shit out.
Massive digital IP knowledge in your house, and now is the time to listen to it.
No, I would agree. What do you think the biggest in times like this, leadership gets tested, right? Like, I think talking to a bunch of people this week, we've been really lucky and appreciate everyone's time for it, talking about like how they sort of navigate this. As a leader of your organization, how have you mentally reshifted how you approach this? Like, you knew this would be gnarly, you like, just maybe talk me through just like the mindset of how you've navigated your headspace to lead an organization, knowing it's going to go remote, knowing you're going to have all these different things. Like, how have you managed your headspace to keep that balance? Because you also seem very not freaked out.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really important not to freak out. I mean, this is the biggest test of leadership that many of us have seen, ever in our careers. To transition not just your organization through a crisis, but the whole country through a crisis is it's phenomenal. It's really out there. And so, I mean, I guess how I approach it is kind of multi-layered, and I think maybe I can just talk about a couple of different ways to think about it. Yeah. So I think, first and foremost, you need to be really strong for your organization. I think in times of crisis, people are looking for direction, in terms of where are we going? Is this going to be okay, et cetera, et cetera. Also, in this world, there is so much information already available. So people are also looking for a lot of transparency in information, and then a lot of synthesis of your thinking, because it's very easy for them to go and, find out information that conflicts with what you're saying. So I think, for our organization, we're also been trying to put a lot of transparency into the way that we've been thinking, the sources of information we've been using, and then the criteria that we've been using to assess all of the decisions that we've been making. So I think, resilience in leadership, direction in leadership, transparency, frequent communications, and that's, doing whether that's video updates or getting in on, we have Workplace by Facebook. So getting in there and commenting or amplifying things like that's really important. I think the putting people first message is really important. So encouraging people, explaining the human dynamics that are going on now, which is we're massively stressed, we're anxious. There's a spectrum. Not everyone's at the happy end of that spectrum. And so explaining that, and therefore helping people understand that the behaviors and reactions they're getting is not necessarily about an interaction we're having. It's about the stress we're going through. So, and we're just doing lots of encouraging our people to listen to each other, to empathize, just to be there to support. I think providing kind of some direction in terms of what does the next 3, 6, 9 months look like. No one knows that. However, here's what we're thinking it looks like helps. And then I think the final one is around, it's really important that leaders show vulnerability. So I am fine, and I have a really, really high stress tolerance level, and I have a high change level. I'm still really tired. It's been huge.
Yeah.
We were sprinting a marathon anyway in the lead up to this. And so I think it's important for leaders to be vulnerable, that I am tired like many people. I'm standing up new routines. So, so I'm not perfect either, that I'm looking out for a whole range of people emotionally, not just physically getting them home, but emotionally once they're home, how we look after them, how we support them. I'm really sad. I look at, all the people who are being affected by this, their partners have been made redundant already.
Yeah.
People whose parents have just been diagnosed with cancer, they can't get anywhere near them, to see them. Families that have split, families that are using kids to get power in relationships, and you look at that and you go, I'm just, that makes me really sad as well. So I think there's a lot of people doing it tough, and so as leaders, it's okay to show some vulnerability. And we should encourage that in order to the conversation we kind of started at. If we encourage that and we accept that, then people are going to get through this a lot more, rather than sometimes we can assume that, it's a bit of robotics going on and just get through it.
So I have this, I totally agree. I'm just trying to figure out how I navigate to it, because so when most people that exist in an organization, when they see leadership at the top, not that I've been in a big, massive, like, not that I'm technically employable because I'm a menace, but I know what it feels like when they can see, they feels like it's like the ivory tower of like, oh, there they are, flipping, being all fancy and doing their little fancy shit, whatever. When it humanizes and brings them down to become relatable, Craig was talking about this other day, saying, like that new leadership is, it's showing the authenticity and that vulnerability and actually being able to have genuine chats and all the rest of it. That human, like being able to humanize those that are human, that aren't seen as human. And it sounds so weird, but these constructs of it, it's so stuffed. And I think it's been cool because even like when I think we had the first one with Jolie Hodson from CEO of Spark, and she's like at her house and she's got like her room and shit behind it. And I was thinking, when else ever would anyone publicly ever see her room?
Yeah.
When would, it's like that would happen? And then like Craig was yesterday, and he's on the deck and just wearing a t-shirt and shit. Obviously Zero's pretty more mellow culture, but I think it's almost forcing like just empathy and more feeling and emotion and EQ out of leaders. And I think that's really good, because I think at this time, if you were that old school flipping stuff, this is how we do it, my way or the highway bullshit, you'd just come off like a flipping tool bag and everyone would be just off you. Like you'd be like, dude, do you not have a soul? What are you doing? So I almost feel like at the end of this, the leaders with heart are almost going to be the heroes, like I think there's a massive opportunity for leadership in New Zealand as well, which is cool. And it has been good seeing leaders step up and humanize. So I think you're right. Yeah, it's a tipping point for maybe the way the new leadership should be or could be, right?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think, some of the leaders in the previous models that you talked about, their organizations won't survive. And so those leaders who can cope with, uncertainty, vulnerability, who are very flexible, who are very connected to their teams, they're the ones who are going to come through, and who value, things like emotional intelligence and have those skills to connect with their staff, at that level. And I do think it's important, we are seeing in agile models that more leadership decision-making communications is devolved. I still do think, though, it is important that the chief executive role is very visible, is and therefore as leaders we also need to be resilient, very resilient. This is not a 4-week thing. This is, I don't, right? This is my view on everything that I'm reading and seeing and hearing. We're in this for, 9, 12, 15, 18 months. And so it's critical that as leaders, we are, and you talked about what am I thinking about? I'm thinking about how I pivot the organization to be in this kind of environment of uncertainty for 12 to 18 months. And how I prepare people for that, how I prepare myself and our leaders to stay strong and resilient through that time. I think that's really critical.
I was just thinking 2 words, remote resilience.
That's right. Exactly. And like many others that, you've had, I saw Craig on, and, our teams, some of our teams are having so much fun. Like we had, the Batman outfits yesterday, people are doing drinks, they're doing dance classes, there's all sorts of stuff happening, which is great.
Yeah, I would say the level of creativity from those in commerce has gone skyward, mixed with boredom and isolation plus confinement is a gnarly combo of things. Net is good. I do, the challenges that the nation is having, I also feel outside of the commerce, it's going to force all the community connection to almost get hyper localized. Like I want to go to the dairy and support Sally and her flower stand. I know it's important for that. So in many ways, it may empower communities better than ever before.
I totally agree. I think
Mm.
we're going to see all sorts of that's exactly right. People, I mean, we're not going to be able to spend money in lockdown, right? Which is not. So,
Yeah.
so for those of us who are able to, contribute to community causes, then I think that's really, really important that we are becoming aware of those and supporting those, and that we are keeping our economy going. I mean, that's critical. If we don't, we're just going to have a much bigger mess to clean up.
Yep.
And then we'll see some whole new models come through in regards to, we're already seeing it. Like I know some of our staff have been involved in Lower Hutt and giving out care packages to 800, 1,000 people who just aren't in a position like we are to be able to go through this next month in even a medium stress environment. I mean, they're just super stretched and pushed. So so keeping across that, supporting that. I don't quite know where that's going to go, and I don't quite know my role in it, but I'm super open to working that out and then getting in.
Obviously, I guess you're a government agency. You can't, I guess, personal opinion, but have you been happy with the speed of how we've operated and what the government's done with businesses and these the money support they've done to help all these different employees, and like, how have you felt that the whole package over in supporting business that the government's done has actually gone and set up? Because it seems like it happened fast.
I think they've done very well in regards to that. They've got support out for businesses super fast, and it's generous and it's needed. It's absolutely needed. And so now it really is up to businesses to get in there and use those mechanisms, and of course in a genuine way. The more that people take the mickey out of it, the more that will hurt in the long run for them.
Yeah.
So I have been impressed with how quickly the government have mobilised in this space, and it's desperately needed. And I think I think we just need to acknowledge that it's like that it's like the icicle, in terms of you just see the top slither of what's going on. I mean, I've got only some insight into what's happening under all of that, and it is phenomenal, the amount of experts they have involved, the amount of information that's being analysed. I was lucky enough to spend some time with our Chief Science Advisor, Juliet, last week. Even globally, the Chief Science Advisors are connected and having calls, every week around what's happening. There is a whole global mechanism going on and New Zealand mechanism going on. So I think, we judge here without seeing all of what's happening underneath.
Yeah, I've got a friend of mine in the banking space that's up the food chain a bit, and he was just giving me a bit of context to the layers of how they're having to navigate this and the implications if they don't do certain in the way. And it's been quite cool because within banking and telcos, everyone's just like, no, same page. This is for New Zealand. We'll sort our shit out. Sit in, get it done next. Because I think everyone kind of knows, which is cool. And obviously, you've seen how things roll out when they don't go so good. What do you think what's the biggest fear that you think New Zealand should be worried about in this next little bit? Like, what's the fear for New Zealand?
I think there's two. I think, do we have the resilience to ride this through, or will we learn that along the way? And if we have the resilience, then we're going to come through this a lot stronger. I mean, we are a pretty resilient nation anyway, but I don't think we've been tested in this way. And then along with that resilience is, can we behave enough? Can we Singapore or a Japan rather than a Italy or someone else? Where can we just listen and behave and be good citizens for a year or so we can ride through this? So I think that's probably number one. And then I do worry, and I don't have any more data than anyone else. This is my personal opinion rather than a government view. I do worry about the state that we're going to be in as we come through this, and then how the economy recovers. That is on my mind big time, and so hence starting to think about what that could look like, working with people on that. That is really important.
But I think the two are intertwined, right? Because if people behave, it gets value on the other side. And talking to an idea we had the other day with Jace from CEO at Vodafone, was saying, if we get to this end spot, because I was just thinking about the New Zealand winter, if we be good little boys and girls and stay in our flipping rooms and do our shit, coming into summer, if New Zealand can have the marketing piece to the world of like, we're the first to topple it and do it flipping epic, done the right way, we're open for business. Think about globally all the attention that's going to come commercially to be able to set up offices here, to set up businesses here. The tourism, all of a sudden, if it's safe, and if you've had a gong show for 9 months and you've been living in flipping New York or wherever it is, and all of a sudden it's like it's coming into winter in the Northern Hemisphere, it's cold as shit and you're off it, and New Zealand is free and it's open for business and it's ready to flip and rumble, and Air New Zealand goes a direct flight into New York and all the rest of it. Like, I actually think if we can behave, to your point with number one, New Zealand will see the gnarliest, most epic summer / busyness, tourism, hospitality, everyone out in the mix. So I think you are right. The two are totally intertwined. But if we can just be good boys and girls and flip and listen to the angry school teacher that's just like got the little whip out, I think it'll be good, because I think that's the branding piece of the world can be a beacon of, I guess, positivity and on the other side of it, which is cool. I obviously I know your time is very precious. I don't want to take up too much of it, but I really appreciate it. Any final words or anything that you'd kind of like to say?
What else? No, I mean, I think we will get through this. There is no doubt about that. And we are the most resilient species on this planet. And so, it gives us some good time to think about how we get through that, what our values are as we come through this, and where we pivot to and go as a country and as a world. So, there is silver lining in it. It's, I think, also recognizing some of the challenges along the way, and then being conscious and purposeful around how we manage those challenges and how we kind of lead through those challenges. So, so I also kind of am optimistic and know that we will find our way through. I don't quite know what that looks like, but and think that, what you're doing here and many others are doing in terms of providing support is really crucial for all these conversations to be had.
Yeah. No. Okay. Appreciate it. Thanks, Vic. Love your work again. Lots of love on here. We're sharing it out. Enjoy the rest of the day there. Make sure old mate dog doesn't eat your flipping kicks in the back there. I can see he's getting close to it. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right, kikaha.
Thanks, Vic. See ya.
Bye.
That was Vic Crone, CEO of Callaghan Innovation. Good human, good friend, and really awesome. I sit on the board of Figure NZ with her, which is an awesome organization, which you check out as well. So that is the first show for today. I've got another one coming up at 12 with CB Woodhouse. He is CEO of, he sold his initial business to Orcon, I believe. And then he is now CEO of Voyager Internet, so doing some really cool stuff. I think two things. One, if you're in a household right now and you've got flipping kids around that use tech more than you, don't be afraid to ask them. I think that was such a good insight. Definitely do that. And number two, I think there's going to be a new way of leadership. Old mate, yell at everyone and be old angry guys is not going to be the new way that true leaders come out of this thing. So something to be wary of. All right, team, enjoy. I'll see you soon. Peace.